He's still excited in his head. Sports Illustrated is calling for this coach. It's a small school, basically, so he's not known for a whole lot, so he knows this is going to be big for him. At Sports Illustrated, there's a big story they're going to do on LaSalle, so he is really excited, but he stumbles down the stairs to the point where he doesn't know if he's broken anything, if he's sprained anything, because he's hurt, he's bleeding and he's hurt. He rushes down still, gets up, gets the phone, and when he gets on the phone, he says Sports Illustrated in an excited voice, and they say yes, and their response is, and for only 75 cents an issue, you can subscribe for an entire year. Can you imagine how he must have felt that when he gets down there thinking it's going to be something big, it ends up being something that's kind of terrible. It was a letdown for him. And it's tough to be let down. It's tough to be let down. It's tough to be let down on any level, really. When you're thinking about it, nobody really likes to be let down. But when a person of faith or a person on the Lord's side lets you down, it can be kind of difficult. Matter of fact, it can be devastating for a lot of people. Well, really, in this text, Jesus is, in a sense, devastated. He's devastated. He's let down. He's let down by people of faith who are basically more interested in money than they are in the lives of people. And I want you to notice something that he kind of pulls in, probably a picture that a lot of us miss, and that is when you come to church, you really have a certain responsibility. And if you're not careful, if you don't handle the responsibility right, you may end up letting Jesus down. Because it's all about, everybody that studies this, and I wanted to do a lot of things with it, but I couldn't. When you study this text, it's really all about, Jesus being moved to righteous indignation, him becoming angry, him becoming a bit upset because of what's happening. And he's let down, but he's let down not because somebody has taken his parking space. He's not let down because he went to a store and was not able to get whatever it is that he wanted to buy, but he's let down when he goes to church. That's a bad picture. That's a sad picture. Go to church and be let down. I know y'all don't feel like that when you come to church, but go to church and you're just let down. My challenge to you this morning is kind of is that when you go to the house of God, that you make sure that you don't miss fulfilling your responsibility and end up letting Jesus down. That's my challenge to you this morning. Because you can let him down in a whole lot of ways. Now, you really could. There's a variety of ways you can let Jesus down. But I want you to consider some things, because the atmosphere at the temple is supposed to be one that is conducive for the glory of God to fill the place. What takes place in the temple is supposed to always be an atmosphere where the glory of God can just fall at any moment and everything be high and holy and lifted, and God is all excited. But you can be guilty of doing something that interferes with the glory. And it's important that all of us make sure that we don't do anything to interfere with God receiving glory when we come together in worship. I'll look at the text briefly. In verses 12 through 14, the Bible says, and I'm going to read at this point from the New International Version. It says, after this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples. There they stayed for a few days. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found men selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. And notice why Jesus is here. He is here because it's almost time for the Jewish Passover. This is, the Feast of Passover. Remember, it is when the children of Israel, they were delivered from bondage in Egypt. And when the Lord killed by way of the death angel comes through the place and they have blood on their doorposts, they're able to be saved. And this is the Passover where they remember, as recorded in Exodus chapter 12, this great thing that God has done for them. And they celebrated this annually on the 14th day of Nisan, which is on the Jewish calendar between March and April. And on this day, between the hours of 3 to 6, lambs were slaughtered and the Passover meal is eaten. This is what they are getting ready to celebrate. And in obedience to Exodus chapter 23, Jesus, he goes up to Jerusalem, and he's doing this to observe this. This is why he is in this particular place. But then when he gets there, he would have found, when he gets there, there would be an overflowing amount of Jewish pilgrims who've come from everywhere. People are everywhere during this time. This is such a high time of celebration. They are celebrating these feasts. Multitudes come. Matter of fact, it was big business because so many people are here. Big business. This is something that is extraordinary to see. And so in the temple complex, this is where they would set up shop. It would more than likely be in what's called the court of the Gentiles. Matter of fact, to kind of help you see how this all works, I think you should understand the layout of the temple. When you have time, go and look at the layout of the temple, and what you'll discover is that the temple building was a small jeweled structure that was seated in the center of the temple itself, because it's two places. And it was called the holy place or the Holy of Holies. This is in the very center of this whole some 32 acres of land. They have this one building that is set up there, and only the high priest could enter into this place, and he could only do it once a year on the Day of Atonement. And then they also had these temple precincts, and they were where they had 4 courtyards, and they would decrease in their value the further they are away from the Holy of Holies. So here they are, 4 distinct places. They have one place that is called the court of the priests. This is closest to the Holy of Holies. This is where the priests are only allowed to enter into this particular court. Within that courtyard, the priests, they would have these great furnishings. You've probably heard of them before. Things like the altar of burnt offering, the brazen laver, the 7-branch lampstand, the altar of incense, and the table of showbread. That was one court, the court of priests. Then it had another court that was right outside of that one. There were walls that were set up between these. And that court was the court of the Israelites. In this particular court, there was a huge courtyard where the worshipers would come together, and they would come with joint services, and those worshipers at that place would hand their sacrifices over to the priests so that the priests could offer up the sacrifice for them. So they have the court of the priests, they have the court of the Israelites, then there was the court of the women. And this is where the women, it was a limited area where they could go except for when they were in joint worship with the men. In this particular place, they could enter into the court of the Israelites, but they could only do that at times when it was joint worship. That's the only time they could do that. But then the last court was the court of the Gentiles. This was a vast space. It was great amount of space, very, 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 very big, and it was the place of worship for all the Gentiles who had converted to Judaism. This is a grand space, and this is the place that is furthest away from the Holy of Holies. It's on the very outside. Well, this is where Jesus comes and where Jesus gets irritated. He's not at the Holy of Holies. He's not at the court of the Israelites. He's not at the court of the women. He is at the court of the Gentiles. It's the outer place. As a matter of fact, this place is so far away that they were trying to keep the Gentiles away from the very presence of God. I'll say it that way. They had them further away. And they do this when Jesus comes. This is where the letdown activity starts to take place. Because when he sees the Gentile court, he notices what's being done in the Gentile court. The place that's furthest away from the presence of God, so to speak. There are two things that irritate him. One is because of these groups. They anger him. One is the money changers. This group in people of Israel, they had to pay a temple tax. When they would go here, they had to pay some money, all right? Go to the temple, there's a tax you got to pay. And the people, they're forced to pay the tax in a local currency. So when they go there, they got to make sure they use the right kind of money to pay for it. And the problem is they got so many people coming that these money changers, they set up their table, so to speak, because they got to trade out the money. They got to exchange the money. They got to make sure that they use the local currency because of the type of silver that they use for paying the tax. Well, when they do this, these money changers charge fees that are exorbitant. They are very, very high. They put a large, kind of like what Trump does to whatever. They put a large amount of fees on it because the money changers are making a fortune doing this and in the outer courts. They're making money just by trading out. And so basically, they're ripping the people off and doing it right in the temple. Ripping the people off, making the people pay all this money, and they're doing it right in the temple. That's the money changer. Then there's another group that made them so upset, and it's not that they were selling things in the temple. That's not the issue. Because really, it was common in their time to sell things at the temple. It was a useful purpose because it's believed that during this time they had like maybe 2.5 million plus people who would come through during this Passover time. And that does not include the people who actually lived in Jerusalem. So they have a whole lot of people who are coming in this place. And when they're coming in to celebrate the Passover, these people need animals to offer sacrifices. Now, they can't travel with their animals. So they're coming to offer sacrifice, but they have no animals. So the people who are selling, they have the animals that they need. And since they have the animals that they need, they just sell them for a high amount. They sell them doves and lambs and all that, and they put a big old price on what it's going to cost. Now, they got to get the animals because they got to offer a sacrifice. So it's this convenience that they have. Y'all kind of know, you pay for convenience. That's why, when you go to like amusement parks and all that kind of stuff, where they wouldn't let you bring your own food and stuff in, because you get hungry, you're going to have to pay $20 for a Coke because you're thirsty. It's convenience. That's all it is. That's why it costs more when you go, you go to Walmart or whatever and get a drink for $1.50, but when you're out somewhere and you want it, it's going to cost $5 because you're paying for convenience. You're not paying for anything else. It's just that it's convenient. So they're doing this. That's what they're doing in this particular passage. And so when they get them like that, it's like they have for them, a legitimate way of making a lot of money, but what they're doing is they're using the travelers. The travelers are at the mercy of the people who are selling these things, at the mercy of them, because they need the animal. I got to offer up the sacrifice, and the only way I'm going to get it is I got to pay for it. And the problem was that the people who were selling the animals, again, they're ripping the people off at the temple. Ripping the people off at the temple. So they overcharged them since they knew they needed it. They taxed them because they knew they needed it. Y'all, they taxed them because they knew they needed it. If I can get over on you because I know you need something, then I can make some money, and you're going to pay it because you need it. That's a bad situation. And so this is why Jesus says, you've made my house into a den of thieves, because you're robbing people. This is really bad. And so You know, you think about it. But Jesus, don't miss it because a lot of people make the statement. Jesus really did not, when this happened, lose his temper. That's not what he does. He's not losing his temper because when you lose your temper, you're out of control. Jesus does not lose his temper. This was a deliberate act on his part. He does what he does on purpose. He's not out of control. When he sees this, he turns over the tables. He drives them out because of the thieving that they're doing. And his message is very simple. Don't mess with my house. I wish I had time. Don't mess with my house. Mess with your house, but don't mess with my house. Don't mess with my house. Don't do that. Matter of fact, don't do it in the name of religion. Don't you do damage to what is set up to bring glory to my Father in the name of religion. Don't do that. And so people who came in the name of religion, they were deceiving the people. That's what they're doing basically in the text. And so Jesus says, I'm not going to stand for it. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of what you're doing. And so this is when he turns everything over and he does what he does. Now, I said all that to get to the stuff that I really want to say. Because I'm telling you, when Jesus comes in this place, he's let down by what he sees. He is really upset about this, and he intentionally drives the people out. And the text says in verse 15, 16, so he made a whip out of cords, drove all of them from the temple, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of money changers, overturned the tables to those who sold doves. He said, get these out of here. How dare you turn my Father's house into a market? Now, the text again says he's angry because of what his people were doing at his Father's house. I tell you again, my challenge, again, don't let Jesus down this way. But I hear y'all saying, well, Pastor, I'm not doing that. I'm not exchanging the money where I'm adding, charging people a lot of things. I'm not overpricing people for something at the temple. So how dare you come tell me that I'm letting Jesus down at his house? Well, let's consider some things. And then we'll see if anybody's letting Jesus down. So first of all, you let Jesus down when you distort the purpose of the temple. You let him down when you distort. Because notice carefully, when he shows up, I told you he's in the court of the Gentiles, the outer court. That's where he is. And that's where he sees the money changers and the sellers taking advantage of the people. The people were coming to the temple to worship and offer their sacrifices. That's their purpose of going there. But when they enter into the court of Gentiles, they don't find worship going on. But rather the purpose has been distorted by the behavior of the Jewish people. The whole purpose of what they're there for is distorted, messed up, damaged by what is going on. Understand, when you come to church, you ought not ever distort, deceive, or disfigure what the purpose of the church ought to be. Not on any level. You let Jesus down when your purpose becomes something or anything other than what Jesus said it ought to be. That's when it becomes distorted. Because everything that we do in church should have a central primary purpose. That when we come to glorify God, and through our worship of him, people are saved and delivered and set free. Everything should be centered around that. If we try to make sure people know Jesus, God gets the glory, and that the gospel is able to turn people's lives around, everything. But our problem is, when we're glorifying God, that's what happens. We're able to make disciples, help other people, and come to a real relationship with Jesus. That's really what the purpose is all about. But if you're distorting the purpose and making people think that church is all about what I can get from God, then you let Jesus down. Getting from God is a byproduct of you worshiping him the right way. I'm not just supposed to come here with my hand out trying to get something from God. No, I come here to worship him, to make sure he gets glory. Then if I'm doing all that, he will automatically respond to what I'm doing. Yeah, that's what he'll do. So I ask you, are you letting Jesus down? Are you messing up the purpose of the house of God? I know you're not going to be honest. It's okay. I know. It's all right. I know. I understand. Don't be honest. Because sometimes, listen, sometimes in church, we place more importance on the institutions of the church, buildings, programs, and a lot of other stuff, than we do our ultimate mission. All the other stuff becomes very important, and we negate what we were supposed to do. And so when it happens, the institutions and all that, they become central, and the mission gets on the back. We start highlighting all the other stuff, and the mission gets lost in the middle of what we're doing. Now, it's all right to do the stuff that you do, but you got to make sure you keep everything where it's supposed to be, because people will easily lose sight of what Jesus is concerned about. And so you have to be intentional about it. They say the Taj Mahal is a good example. Taj Mahal, it's one of the most beautiful and costly tombs that was ever built. It was built in 1629, and it was built when the favorite wife of this Indian ruler, who was Shah Jahan, when he died, he ordered that a magnificent tomb be built as a memorial to his wife. And the Shah placed his wife's casket in the middle of a parcel of land, and the construction of the temple started to begin around this piece that he had. But several years into that venture, his grief for his wife gave way to a passion for the project. He was grieving his wife so bad, he forgot about what he had done when he put her in a certain place. And the records show that one day while he was surveying the site, he just stumbled over a wooden box, and he had some workers throw the wooden box out. He just stumbled over a wooden box, had them throw it out. It was months before he realized it was his wife's casket that had been destroyed. The original purpose for the memorial became lost in the details of the construction. And a lot of times, the purpose of church, what we're about, gets lost in us being busy doing all the other things instead of us focusing on the right thing. And you have to be real careful, because you can easily get caught up in that. You can get easily caught up in that. Y'all, that's why you got to stay in the Word. That's why you got to stay listening to pastor preach. You got to take that stuff out so you don't get lost in all the other stuff. Yeah, very important. But you distort the purpose. When you do that, somebody's going to miss what God has for their lives because it gets lost. So don't let Jesus down by distorting the purpose of the temple. But then here's another, real important for y'all that say you don't do it. Don't distort the purpose of the temple, but then don't distract people. Notice again that in the court of the Gentiles, these Jews, they're exploiting the people with money for outrageous prices and overpricing the animals. That's what they're doing. And you got to know, this is as close as those Gentiles can get. They can't get close to the Holy of Holies. Kind of like saying they can't really get close to the presence of God. They can't get. The closest they can get is on the outer court. That's close they can get. And since it's like this, it's almost like saying, they really need to be able to be in an atmosphere that is serious about the worship of God. They need to be in that. Since this is as close as they can get, they got to be somewhere where they can at least sense or feel the presence of God. But what happens in these Gentiles is that they can miss the reality of a relationship with God, because when they go to church, the foolishness can distract them. They go to church, but the foolishness can keep them from seeing and getting what they really need. Listen, if you are doing anything to distract people, you are letting Jesus down. Now, I know, when I tell you that people who come to the temple, people who come to church now, listen, in this day and time, People don't need anything to distract them when they come to church now. I wish I had time to talk about it. People don't need anything now to distract them. They need to get all the Jesus, all the worship, all the preaching, all the teaching, all the work. They need all they can get now. So they don't need anything to distract them. It's enough things in the world. And the man in the White House ain't helping us. It's enough things in the world to distract people from God. Imagine how difficult it's going to be to worship God while right next to you, people are squabbling over the price of a lamb. They bickering and arguing over what it costs for a dove. Can you imagine how hard it is to really worship the way you ought to? Not all the other animals around. You already got a lot of stuff. Think about sitting there trying to pray and two people arguing about what the rate is. It doesn't make sense. People really, in their time, they were really genuine in trying to worship God. They were really trying to do that and pray, but they're hindered by greediness. They're hindered by these trade practices of somebody. It's an opportunity for me to get something. It's an opportunity for me to make some money. I'm just concerned about making a buck, making some money, messing up somebody's worship. Y'all, people complain all the time. I don't know if you know it or not. People complain all the time about, where they worship and how they worship and all that kind of stuff. And what's going on here is it's a basic problem. I can't worship freely if you doing something to distract me. Leave me alone if I'm trying to hear my pastor preach. Listen, you stop talking if I'm trying to be talked to. Stop asking me questions. Don't text me. If I got my phone out, I'm trying to look at the Bible on my phone. I'm not trying to receive messages from you. As a matter of fact, you stop scrolling on social media while we trying to get something from the work. Because that's all distraction. Yeah. And stop talking about what I got on. Stop trying to examine, pastor got on a new suit. No, that ain't your business right now. We're trying to make sure we get what we need. Yeah, so you got to make sure that you don't distract people, because really, a Jewish person, they were serious about it. And so, look, distraction though, don't y'all miss it, because you got to sometimes ask yourself the question of how often do you allow people to worship in an undistracted atmosphere. Distraction is more than noise. It includes insider talk and thinking. By insider talk, I don't mean just gossip or something like that. I mean, phrases and terminology that are unfamiliar with some people. Here's what I mean. The fact that a lot of times some of y'all use terminology that folk don't know nothing about. Here's a good thing about pastor. I'm telling you about pastor. Pastor use all these Greek words and all that, but he explains it to you. He explains it to you so that it makes it easier. Now, some of y'all need to stop trying to use it because you don't know what you're talking about. And so you mess up somebody else. You mess somebody else, and they all confused and all that. So, but this distraction comes in a lot of ways, and the fact that people do it, it confuses people, so they're not able to get what they really need. Think about how difficult it's going to be for somebody to sit in worship service where they don't understand anything that's going on. Nothing going on. I'm not. That's why that's why sometimes the tongue speaking and all that kind of stuff can get thrown off with some people's worship. Because that's another lesson. Okay. And so I ask you, are you doing anything to distract anybody? That's something for you to ask yourself. Because if you're keeping people from worshiping God, if you're keeping people from coming to church and seeing Jesus, because you got a bad attitude. If you're doing anything where you're keeping people from really hearing from God because of your consistent gossip or you making them feel uncomfortable, you're letting Jesus down. All right, here's another, because I got to stop. You distort the temple, you distract people, but then you let Jesus down. Don't disregard your paying. Now, y'all are going to leave me now, I know. Because there's a principle in the text, and here it is. Because think about this. If the money changers and the ones selling the animals are charging the people so much, it's a great possibility they're not going to be able to give like they need to. Because when it comes to the temple, unlike most people in this day and time, they went to church to give. Not necessarily to get. And so, but can you imagine there's an inability to give right if I'm being taken advantage of? Because a lot of people, they come, but they miss paying because some people just disregard pay. Plain and simple, some folk just not gonna pay no matter what. Yeah, and no matter what you do, no matter what you say, and they neglect to do it. Some people neglect to do it also because some people really feel, that their money is being played with, so they don't do it. That's the truth that people have. But when you fail to give, you let Jesus down. When you don't give, I know you might have a variety of reasons that you might not do so. But you really let Jesus down ultimately. Because don't you know it lets him down because it's through your giving that the temple functions and ministry goes forward. So it doesn't make sense for me to think that I can go to the temple and I don't have to give anything. How can I lovingly disregard paying when I recognize the temple got to function? The temple got to do what the temple needs to do so that God gets glory and people's lives are turned around. And it takes money to do it. Oh, yeah, it's all right. Because look, you ever consider what happens if you don't give? So they say when Livingston went to Africa, you don't know him, but there was this Scotch woman who had saved up 30 pounds, a lot of money, and gave it to him. When he gave it to him with the word, said this. She said, I want you to save yourself needless work and exposure by hiring some competent body person who will go with you wherever you go and share your sacrifices and dangers you find yourself in. So with that money, Livingston hired a faithful servant. His faithful servant's name was San Bantino. San Bantino would follow them wherever he went. And in the heart of Africa, there was this lion that came after him. And the lion jumped out at Livingston and was on top of him and was about to kill him altogether. But San Bantino saved Livingston's life at the risk of his own life. Kept the lion from taking him. Now, what if the gift had not been made for Livingston? That would mean Livingston would have been dead. But because somebody gave to make sure he had somebody to protect him, be with him, walk alongside of him, because somebody gave something to make sure it happened, his life was spared. Because somebody willingly gave. Think about all the possibilities, y'all, that you could possess when people fulfill their responsibility of paying, of sacrificing for the Lord. When people do it, great things take place when you're just willing to pay. I know it's not something we like to talk about, but a lot of us may not be concerned at all about it, but because we think God understands. God understands I got bills to pay. God understands my children got to go to college. God understands I have food I need to eat. Yeah, God understands all that. And he's the source behind all of it. And so if he's the source behind all of it, why are you complaining and worried about that? Just do what he says, trust him enough, and allow him the opportunity to bless your life because you faithfully give at all times. Some of us probably would be blessed a whole lot more if we knew how to give right. Well, here's another. Don't damage your praise. Now notice, Jesus shows up, and the expectation when he comes, this is real expectation, when he comes to the temple, you just expect when he comes to the temple to find people praising God. You really do. If you don't, something wrong with you. I tell you that. It is, finding people who are engulfed in the worship of God. That's what you really think. But when he comes to the temple, he finds this chaotic overcrowding of animals and people who are concentrating on taking advantage of the people. It literally means that in this outer court, praise gets damaged by the wrong stuff. Because you can't concentrate on praising God and get over on people at the same time. You can't be able, I don't care how much you want to shout. You can't do that kind of stuff and be all hellish at the same time. Certain things you just can't do and praise God at the same time. You can't praise God with a bad attitude. You can't concentrate on praising God and sin at the same time. You can't treat God's house wrong and praise God at the same time. You just can't do it. You can't do it. You can't have a nasty attitude in your head right now about Pastor's birthday and praise God at the same time. You can't do it. It's about to do it. Hey, Jack, you can't do it. You just can't do it at the same time. It don't work like that. How dare you think you're getting over? You must have some falsified, counterfeit praise if you feel like you can do all that at the same time. No. If your praise is authentic, you'll demonstrate it by how obedient you are in making sure you do things that God wants you to do. So notice what happened in the text. I'm done. Jesus shows up, finds them damaging their praise, disregarding their pain, distracting people, distorting their purpose. And then that's when you get what Jesus, the Bible talks about him making that whip out of cords and then whipping the people up out of there. Now, I'm done. The heart of Jesus in the whole text, that angered him to the point that he gets that whip and he drives them out, turns over the tables, drives them out. Oh, that's a good picture. Drives them out. And then he told the men selling the doves, get out. How dare you turn my Father's house into a market? In verse 17, his disciples remembered that it's written, zeal for your house will consume me. They remember those words. Zeal means passion, enthusiasm. It is taken, it's a reference to Psalm 69. And it gives you this picture of that Jesus is showing that he is zealous about his Father's house. He has a passion, zeal for my house consumes me. It's not just that Jesus wants to just stop them from what they're doing. He's giving a picture to them. He's saying, hey, I don't like this because I'm overly concerned about what's taking place in my daddy's house. And I have a passion for the things of my Father. I'm highly concerned about things that represent my Father. I got a passion for something, and I don't want anything to disrupt it, to damage it, or anything like that. So that's why he's angry. He's angry because they're messing with what belongs to his daddy. He's bothered about what belongs to his daddy. I'm done. My question for you, do you have a zeal for the house of God? Are you consumed with what happens with things that belong to God? I mean, really, you do know our pastor belongs to God. He is a great representative of our Father. He is the one who's the voice of our Father. You ought to be highly consumed with what happens